In this video, we'll look at if you should buy a house in 2023 or you should wait. Now, if you remember the housing crash of 2008, 2010, with the big lead up, the housing prices continued to rise, and then we had that downturn. Once the downturn started, you can see right here the Federal Reserve stepped in and started expanding the money supply and continuously expanded the money supply all the way up to 2022. And as a result of that, you see the asset prices, and here's the housing prices, continue to go up year after year. And you see this huge expansion of the money supply, and you can see what happened with assets. It went straight up with it. Because of inflation, the Federal Reserve has decided to stop the money printing, and instead of expanding the money supply, they're going to contract the money supply. As you can see right here, they've already started. They started to reduce the money supply in May 2022, and these represent trillions of dollars right here, 2 trillion, 4 trillion, 6 trillion, 8 trillion. And so they're coming down pretty good, pretty fast. And you can see what it's doing to asset prices already. You can see they're starting to come down right here, the housing prices. The Federal Reserve said they're going to continue to reduce the money supply for some time, which I believe will continue reducing asset prices, just like you see here. So if you're wondering when to buy a house, the best thing to do is keep an eye on the Federal Reserve's website and listen to Jerome Powell. He's the Federal Reserve Chairman, and they'll tell you exactly what they're going to be doing. Now, if we look at this chart here shows the federal funds rate. And just like we were talking about before, when they had the housing crash of 2008, 2010, you can see right here this gray line represents that recession. And you can see what led up to it. As the Federal Reserve hiked interest rates higher and higher, and then they held them about a little over 5% for about a year, and those high interest rates slowed the economy until recession happened. Once the recession started, the Federal Reserve then started lowering interest rates. And then you can see right here, as they kept the interest rates low for a very long time, asset prices continued to climb. But as you can see over here, they're starting to do the same thing that they did in 2008. Because of all the inflation that we're having and the asset prices rising and commodity prices now starting to rise, the Federal Reserve is starting to hike interest rates. You can see right now we're at about 4.5. At the next meeting, they're either going to raise the interest rates by 0.25 or 0.5. If they raise it by 0.5, that will put us at 5% on the interest rate scale. And if you look over here at about 5%, 5.25, and they held it, and that's what Jerome Powell said they're going to do. They're going to get the interest rates up, they're going to hold it for some time and see what the economy does. And that's what they're doing. So I would think the same thing that happened over here is going to happen again. So I think they're going to hold it, get the interest rates probably up to about 5. They're going to hold them about a year. And if we have a recession, they're going to lower the interest rates. Now, once they lower the interest rates, this is where we're going to be rock bottom. Let's bring back up the median housing prices. So you can see in 2010, let's move this over. So you can see in 2010, we were at the bottom of the housing market, and that's when they lowered interest rates to stimulate the economy, which it did stimulate the economy and raise asset prices. So what I think is we're going to have a replay of 2008. So if you're looking to buy a house, I would forecast in about 2 years, we'll be at the bottom. And that would be the time to buy, because what's going to happen is once we get to the bottom, once we get down here to the bottom, the Federal Reserve is going to step in and see how these interest rates are really high. They're going to do the same thing right here. They're going to lower them all the way down, and then the same thing is going to happen. The prices are going to go back up. So I think you have about a year to 2 years to get ready and start watching the market and get ready to buy your house. My story is I started looking for a house somewhere in here, and every time a house would come onto the market, I would drive out to see it as soon as it came onto the market. And there would be 5, 6, 7, 8 people already there bidding on the house. And then the bidding wars would just keep going up. And it just continued. So I took a break and I thought, well, I'll just wait for the market to calm down. And so then I came back to the market a few years later. It was about in here, and it was even worse. They call this FOMO, fear of missing out. On here, I'd see something on Zillow. As soon as it came on, I would get alert. I would drive straight over there. I would get up to the house and there'd be 10 cars there, and they're all bidding on this house. I've been lucky enough to find this old townhome, $750 a month over here in the Dallas area, but they're about to bulldoze this any time now, so I'm going to have to move out. So I may have to move into another apartment and wait just a little longer. And then once the market downturns like down here, then I will jump in and finally be able to buy a house. If you have any questions or comments, leave them below. I'd love to hear if you're sitting on some cash waiting for the downturn in order to jump into the market.